Welcome back to Random History. I am the navigator as we explore the little-known events and people that make history such an amazing subject. The events I delve into are probably not ones you learned about in school. These are the ones that, when you do hear about them, you're likely to think that they could not possibly be real. But they are. Over the years, my wife has done extensive genealogical research on our families. Her family goes back to the Mayflower, while mine are more recent immigrants, coming over in the 1880s. Both of our families have had many members throughout the generations that served in the military. In fact, her family has fought in every war this country has ever been in, from the Revolutionary War through the War on Terror. This episode of the podcast tells the story of one of her ancestors. In our True Heroes segment, I will tell the story of a Roman Catholic priest whose faith and courage helped him save countless wounded in a battle in Vietnam before he was cut down by enemy fire. Without further delay, Random History presents Colonel Jesse Atwood and Navy Lieutenant Father Vincent Capodanno. The American Civil War raged from 1861 to 1865, and it was a conflict marked by intense battles, shifting strategies, and the emergence of numerous remarkable military units. Among these units was a unique group known as the Jesse Scouts. First led by Colonel Jesse Atwood, these scouts played a crucial role in Union military efforts, often operating behind enemy lines, gathering intelligence that was vital to the Union's war strategy. There are several stories regarding the origins of the Jesse Scouts. One such story is that they were named after Jessie Benton Fremont, the wife of General John C. Fremont. Another story is that they were named after another individual, Major Henry Young, who commanded the Jesse Scouts from November of 1864 until his death in April of 1865. Although there are several publications that promote these two stories, there are major holes in each. In the first story, even in the late 1800s, I'm not so sure that anyone would name their unit after their commanding general's wife. If the Air Force had been around then, the person would have been called a Blue Falcon, a brown noser, butt kisser, however you want to put it. It would have been seen as bootlicking on a major scale and just not done. Never mind the fact that the two Jessies were spelled differently. Jesse Scouts is the male version, while Jessie Benton Fremont is the female spelling. In the second account, although Major Young's nickname was Jesse, the Jesse Scouts were active well before he took command. There was no way anyone could have predicted his ascendancy to leadership. Therefore, I'm going to tell you the third, and historically probably more likely story. This one has been passed down through the generations of the Atwood family. It says that the name Jesse Scouts was used rather than Atwood Scouts in order to protect his wife, Eleanor Chapman Atwood, and their daughters. As a side note, Eleanor was a distant relative of John Chapman, better known as Johnny Appleseed. But I'll save that story for another episode. Jesse Almond Atwood was born on 12 August 1834 in New Hampshire. His upbringing, like that of many young men at the time, was steeped in the values of hard work, patriotism, and a sense of duty to country. These values would later shape his career in the military, particularly during the Civil War. Before the war, Atwood was a man of modest means and reputation, but the conflict would thrust him into the spotlight as a leader of one of the most daring and effective units of the Union Army. As I said earlier, the Jesse Scouts were named after their leader, Colonel Jesse Atwood, and were a hand-picked group of soldiers known for their bravery, cunning, and ability to operate in the most perilous of circumstances. These scouts were unique in the way they often donned Confederate uniforms to move more freely behind enemy lines, gathering intelligence, sabotaging enemy operations, and spreading misinformation. This made them one of the few sanctioned groups in the Union Army allowed to engage in what was essentially espionage, an activity fraught with danger, especially since being caught in enemy uniform in enemy territory would result in summary execution as spies. The origins of the Jesse Scouts can be traced back to the early years of the Civil War. As the Union Army struggled to gain an upper hand in the conflict, it became increasingly clear that conventional tactics alone would not be enough to secure victory. There is a growing need for reliable intelligence, as well as for unconventional units that could disrupt Confederate operations from within. In response to this need, the Jesse Scouts were formed, comprised primarily of men who were not only skilled soldiers, but also familiar with the geography of the southern states and the habits of the Confederate Army. The Jesse Scouts engaged in some of the most daring and critical operations of the Civil War. Their activities ranged from reconnaissance missions, where they would scout out enemy positions and troop movements, to more direct actions, such as cutting telegraph wires, capturing enemy couriers, and even assassinating key Confederate officers. One of the most notable aspects of the Jesse Scouts was their use of Confederate uniforms. This tactic allowed them to move freely within enemy territory, but it also placed them at constant risk. If captured while wearing enemy uniforms, the Scouts faced execution as spies, a fate that many of them ultimately met. Despite the risks, the Jesse Scouts were remarkably effective. They provided the Union Army with invaluable intelligence that helped shape key decisions and, in some cases, even turn the tide of battle. The Jesse Scouts' operations were not limited to any single theater of war. They operated in various regions, from the Eastern Theater, where they gathered intelligence on Confederate forces in Virginia, to the Western Theater, where they disrupted supply lines and communication networks. Their ability to blend in with the enemy and strike without warning made them a formidable force and a constant thorn in the side of the Confederate Army. Colonel Atwood's leadership was instrumental in the success of the Jesse Scouts. He was a man of vision and courage, qualities that inspired those under his command to take on the most dangerous missions with confidence. Atwood was also known for his meticulous planning and his ability to adapt to rapidly changing situations, a skill that was essential for the type of guerrilla warfare in which the Jesse Scouts excelled. Atwood's leadership extended beyond the battlefield. He was also responsible for the selection and training of the Scouts, ensuring that only the most capable and trustworthy men were chosen for this elite unit. His emphasis on discipline, loyalty, and quick thinking under pressure created a unit that was not only effective, but also deeply respected by both their comrades in the Union Army and their adversaries in the Confederacy. One of Atwood's most significant contributions to the Union war effort was his ability to integrate intelligence with military operations. Under his command, the Jesse Scouts provided a steady stream of valuable information that was used to plan Union offenses, disrupt Confederate supply lines, and create confusion among enemy ranks. Atwood understood the importance of intelligence in warfare, and he used the Jesse Scouts to ensure that the Union Army always had the upper hand when it came to knowing the enemy's movements and intentions. The Confederates also had similar groups operating during the war. The most notorious was led by Colonel John Singleton Mosby. The Mosby Raiders were a guerrilla unit that also used hit-and-run tactics to disrupt Union supply lines and communications in Virginia. The Jesse Scouts, while operating behind enemy lines, had adapted many of the unconventional warfare tactics used by Mosby's men. Both groups engaged in intelligence gathering, raids, and counterinsurgency, or hunting enemy spies. The Jesse Scouts' missions were crucial in undermining Confederate logistics, and they played a significant role in the Union Army's ultimate success in campaigns like the Appomattox Campaign, which led to the surrender of General Lee's army. These operations were part of a larger, quote, shadow war that saw both North and South engaging in special operations, a precursor to modern special force tactics. The intense rivalry and strategic depth of the conflict between the Jesse Scouts and Mosby's Rangers have been explored in various books, including Patrick K. O'Donnell's The Unvanquished, which highlights the importance of these clandestine efforts in shaping the outcome of the war and the legacy in American military history. As the end of the war approached, the Jesse Scouts played a key role in events leading up to the Battle of Five Forks, a crucial engagement during the Appomattox Campaign. Their intelligence gathering helped Generals Sheridan and Grant plan the final assault that eventually broke Confederate defenses, leading to the fall of Petersburg and Richmond. This battle was a pivotal moment in the closing days of the Civil War. The legacy of the Jesse Scouts and Colonel Jesse Atwood is one of bravery, innovation, and strategic importance. Although they were a small unit, their impact on the Civil War was disproportionately large. The intelligence they gathered and the operations they conducted were crucial to the success of Union campaigns, especially in the Shenandoah Valley and Appomattox, as I had mentioned earlier. And the methods foreshadowed the more sophisticated forms of military intelligence and special operations that would become standard in later conflicts. The Jesse Scouts were also pioneers in the use of unconventional warfare, a concept that has become increasingly important in modern military doctrine. Their ability to operate behind enemy lines, gather intelligence, and conduct sabotage missions made them the model for future special operations forces. In many ways, the tactics employed by the Jesse Scouts can be seen as a precursor to the modern-day activities of units like the U.S. Army Rangers and the Navy SEALs. Colonel Atwood's role in the Civil War, while not as widely recognized as that of some other military leaders, was nonetheless crucial to the Union's success. His leadership of the Jesse Scouts demonstrated the importance of adaptability, intelligence, and unconventional tactics in warfare. The Scouts' contributions to the Union victory are a testament to the effectiveness of Atwood's leadership and the bravery of the men who served under him. Jesse Atwood and the Jesse Scouts played a vital, if often overlooked, role in the Union's victory during the Civil War. Through their daring operations and invaluable intelligence-gathering efforts, they provided the Union Army with the tools it needed to outmaneuver the Confederacy. Atwood's leadership was central to their success, and his legacy lives on in the annals of military history. The Jesse Scouts exemplify the impact that a small, dedicated group of soldiers can have on the outcome of a war, and their story is a fascinating chapter in the history of the American Civil War. Although Colonel Atwood's service was spent in the shadows of the Civil War, today's true hero spent his service out in the open. Like Colonel Atwood, however, this hero's story is one of immense courage and faith. Our true hero today served as a chaplain in the Navy during Vietnam. Although unarmed, he often accompanied the Marines of the 3rd Division as they patrolled the jungles of the Quang Tinh province. Vincent Robert Capodanno was a Roman Catholic priest and United States Navy chaplain who became a symbol of selflessness and sacrifice during the Vietnam War. Born on 13 February 1929 in Staten Island, New York, Capodanno was the 10th child in a devout Italian-American family. He felt a calling to the priesthood early in life and entered the Maryknoll Seminary in Ossining, New York, in 1949. After his ordination as a priest in 1958, Capodanno was initially assigned to missionary work in Taiwan and later Hong Kong. However, it was his service as chaplain in the U.S. Navy that brought him into the heart of the Vietnam War. In 1965, Capodanno requested and received permission to join the Navy Chaplain Corps, where he was commissioned as a lieutenant. He was assigned to the 7th Marine Regiment in Vietnam, where he quickly won the respect and admiration of the Marines he served and earned the nickname the Grunt Padre. Known for his calm demeanor and unwavering commitment, Capodanno was often seen in the field, ministering to soldiers and offering comfort to the wounded and dying. Capodanno's most famous act of heroism occurred during Operation Swift on 4 September 1967 in the Khe Sanh Valley. On that day, the Marines of D Company, 1st Battalion, 5th Marines were ambushed by a large North Vietnamese force. The situation quickly deteriorated as the Marines found themselves outnumbered and surrounded. Despite the heavy enemy fire, Capodanno moved among the wounded and dying, administering last rites and offering words of comfort. He refused to seek cover, choosing instead to stay with his men on the front lines. During the battle, Capodanno was gravely wounded in the face, hands, and legs. Despite his injuries, he continued to tend to the wounded, and even shielded a Marine from enemy fire with his own body. Capodanno's actions saved numerous lives, but he would eventually pay the ultimate price. He was killed by machine gun fire as he attempted to aid a wounded corpsman. Capodanno was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor, the United States' highest military decoration, for his extraordinary heroism and self-sacrifice. Capodanno's legacy endures not only in the military but also within the Catholic Church. In 1973, the Catholic Church declared him a servant of God, the first step towards sainthood. His cause for canonization is still under review, and he is revered as a model of Christian charity and military valor. His story has been memorialized in numerous books, documentaries, and monuments, ensuring his legacy of faith and courage will not be forgotten. Vincent Robert Capodanno is remembered as a hero and martyr who gave his life in service to others. His selflessness, courage, and unwavering commitment to his faith and his fellow Marines continue to inspire generations of servicemen and women. Unfortunately, this brings us to the end of episode 7. I hope you enjoyed listening to the program. As always, I truly enjoy researching and writing these podcasts. I hope you'll continue listening to my future episodes. And in the meantime, you can use the link in the podcast description to view my sources, view the transcripts, or even submit a request for stories you'd like to hear in the future. Until next time, make some history of your own. Navigator out.